Over the past 2 decades, we have seen a severe division between the left and right political parties. We have seen riots in the streets, Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorizing cities, burning them to the ground, cordoning off whole sections and declaring their police-free safe zones, all of which were littered with rape, murder, and robbery, because society without police defending individual rights is chaotic. When you violate the rights of another, you voluntarily forfeit your own. Now, this is not to say that there have not been historical incidents where police have gone too far. We all know this has happened, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. But the police are just enforcing the law. They will use whatever force necessary to uphold that law. When they don't enforce the law, they get into trouble because they're not doing their job. Now, this is where the radical left has gone wrong in blaming the police and not the law itself. We have allowed our legislatures to pass unnecessary laws that go beyond protecting us from each other. Laws have progressed to the point where they are protecting us from ourselves. Victimless crimes go against individual freedom. Seatbelt laws, helmet laws are just a few examples. The government is fining us and in some cases arresting us for practicing personal choices. Police can stop you and investigate you for just about anything. Some law somewhere at some time has been passed and written that has given them probable cause to stop you. They can demand to see your papers in some places for spitting on the sidewalk or swearing in public. The left has so much hate and discontent for the police, they chant for them to be killed. BLM has called for their defunding. The right side of the aisle has so much hate and discontent for the left and government, they stormed the Capitol building, where one of them was shot by a police officer who was just enforcing the law. I mean, her name was Ashley Babbitt. Now, the left labels her as a domestic terrorist, of course, and the right labels her as a hero. No matter which side of the political aisle you land on, we can all agree that our country is at the center of a very significant divide. But is this divide heavy enough for another civil war? The only way to analyze this is to look at the road that led to the previous Civil War. In many ways, the North and the South differed over the morality of slavery. Yet, this was not the root cause of the Civil War. Contrary to what the majority of us were taught by the government public school system, Lincoln even stated himself, if he could keep the Union together without freeing a single slave, he would have. He also stated, there is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on the terms of social and political equality, end quote. Apparently, black lives did not matter to Abraham Lincoln. The southern states felt that the federal government was impeding individual states' rights with their gradual encroachments to gain more power. The Morrill Tariff was a significant cause of divide. Now, this tariff was a vast plan to tax southern states due to their large economic income from agriculture, increasing the question of how much power does the federal government possess over the states. Lincoln even proposed a 13th Amendment that would guarantee the rights of the individual states to own slaves. Yes, you heard that correctly. Abraham Lincoln, the abolitionist, the demigod of big government, proposed an amendment to the Constitution to ensure that states will permanently have the right to own human beings, all in the name to preserve the Union. But this was before the Civil War. So ask yourself this question. Had the Confederacy been purely motivated by slavery, why would they continue to secede after a proposal that would guarantee them the ability to continue to own their slaves? why wouldn't they just accept that and not move forward with secession? Because this amendment did not prevent the vile government encroachments that were occurring on the states. So they can continue to secede from the Union, which had a legal precedent set from the American Revolution when we seceded from Great Britain. Now, the end of the war was the end of states' rights as they were intended. It was the very beginning of a totally centralized government with absolute power over individual states. Before the Civil War, states were sovereign countries, right? All united for a common defense. Today, we have this divide approaching the same level that it was in the events leading up to the American Civil War. But our individual states' rights lack the power and authority to fight the federal government. I mean, even state militias, who were designed to protect individual states, have been replaced with the National Guard, which is a federal organization. So civil war is unlikely in the traditional terms. We are already seeing an uprising, whether it's the conservatives in the Capitol or violent riots by the left. But as far as an organized political revolt, I mean, only time can tell. But our founding fathers established this country to avoid future uprisings. They set it up with the power of us to change the system through our own words, through the freedom of the press and speech. They acknowledged our rights to change the politicians that have developed into tyrants through voting. But a lot of us take this for granted. We focus on national elections and neglect our local legislatures, who still have some power to resist and fight the federal bureaucracy on our behalf. Our local school boards can advocate against national policy that indoctrinates our children. I mean, when was the last time any of us looked at the approach of our local school boards? I mean, recently we've seen in the headlines that parents who are going to school boards are now being labeled as domestic terrorists for disagreeing with critical race theory. Soccer moms investigated by the FBI for being domestic terrorists, while real terrorists hold Americans hostage in Afghanistan. But that's what government does. They use their established powers to suppress any contrary opinions to their agenda, so they can carry on with whatever they wish to do. But we can vote big government and corrupt politicians out of office. We have the power to control who goes into Congress. The next revolution will be won through voting. It will also be won through spreading knowledge that has been suppressed by the public school curriculum and the propaganda of the mainstream media. What are we teaching our children? Are we allowing them to learn alternative facts to history? Or are we taking an active role in their education and spreading the knowledge of individual rights? Believe it or not, the answer to getting our country back is in our own hands. It lies in the lessons we teach our offspring and the knowledge we spread through our own publications and discussions. I mean, with our neighbors. When we do have those discussions, are they civil, calm? Are they knowledgeable? Or are we just parroting what we heard on the news or social media? Is our position coming from a deep understanding of government and history based on facts? If it's the latter, well, then it's only a matter of time before we win our country back. Now, make no mistake about it, the far left is winning. That's just the reality of the situation. Democrats own the teachers' unions, the media, Hollywood. So future generations are constantly bombarded with one-sided views. From school to television to the censored information they receive on social media, they are force-fed informations. They are force-fed, cherry-picked facts. Now, according to the Pew Research Center, an overwhelming majority of the public believe the higher education system is headed in the wrong direction. 73% of Republicans and an astonishing 52% of Democrats agree on this issue. Pew also discovered adults with postgraduate degrees are most likely to have consistent liberal political views. Edweek.org conducted a similar survey that showed a dramatic lean in teachers and political affiliation, with 41% identifying with the Democratic Party and just 27% classifying themselves as Republicans. Teachers' unions also show a bias when donating to politicians. In the 2020 elections, teachers' unions donated $860,000 to their top 20 candidates, all Democrats. Their highest contribution was to, you guessed it, Joe Biden, who received $240,000 from the public school system. According to PacificResearch.org, the California Teachers Association openly supports Black Lives Matter on their website. I mean, you can go on there and you can look at the California Teachers Association openly supporting Black Lives Matter. How are those children going to grow up politically? I mean, in our current day and age, rather than children being taught logic, grammar, and rhetoric, or the trivium, which is a classical education that the smartest people in history were taught in their youth, it also builds the foundation for collecting information, analyzing that information, then presenting your findings orally or in writing. Our children don't learn that anymore. Our children learn facts from people who have already done that for them, where their opinions are formed by others. They're told the answer. They are never shown how to find the answer. I mean, we see it every day. Liberal tears, meltdowns, crying when they see flags, throwing temper tantrums, pretending to be another gender. They firmly believe in their heart of hearts that government is good and will solve all of their problems, that all white people are racist, and that America was never great because they grew up in this system. They went to school, learned a left-wing ideology, came home from school, and learned it again from television, and then went on to social media and learned it again from social media censorship. And this is what needs to change. This is what the next American Revolution needs to be. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the Ryan Samuels Show. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you every Friday for Freedom Fridays at RyanFSamuels.com, 6 o'clock.